You ready to have some fun?
Yeah.
Let's have some fun. Here we go. Hey, welcome y'all! Woo! That's right. This is the Pregame Engineer Tailgate Mayor Racing Podcast, episode number 39 for Tuesday, March 8th, 2016. I'm Tailgate Mayor Rusty Wallace, joined as always in the PETM podcast studio in Atlanta, Georgia, by Pregame Engineer Andrew Sherwin. What's happening, man?
Welcome to the fastest evolving, fastest growing podcast on the internet. We love y'all being here.
It's Green Flag Racing on the Periscope, they're telling us. It sure is. I'm ready to have some fun. You ready?
Yeah, I'm probably going to cuss somebody out. I don't know.
I know you're going to make me have to do
Just
more work
accident.
once again,
It was
having to go in with a bleep machine and work all that stuff.
I am a bleepaholic, so.
I tell you what, man, this desk is covered in
a plethora of adult entertainment.
Tell you what.
In terms of beverages.
Let's just start small. What you drinking, man?
What am I drinking? Well, I'm drinking something you turned me on to just now. I've got some sort of a variation of my standard bourbon and tonic, but with a little of that cherry grenadine. So it's a kind of a pinky red looking thing, but
yeah,
it tastes
kind of
quite
pink
well.
on us, but it was tasty. You know what it was? I was reading some stuff. I don't know if it was some anniversary of Andre the Giant's either birthday or dying or whatever it was, but he. Some more stories came out, and everybody, and I mean, his stories.
Andre Giant could drink, y'all.
I'm telling you what.
I mean to tell you he could drink.
I'm telling you what. But
he could drink.
The latest story to come out says he made a drink called the Americano, he called it, or the American, something like that.
It was like a pitcher full of liquor?
Yes. He took a 64-ounce pitcher, filled it with various liquor, and drank it, and he called it the American for no reason other than just be funny.
Well, it's like his version of a Long Island iced tea, except for it had no sour mix, no Coke, and nothing that wasn't like 80 proof or more.
Right. So I said, all right, I'm going to make me an American. And I wussed out and kind of mix it with some stuff. Now it's a pink drink. So be it. I'm going to drink my pink drink and be happy with it. It's got bourbon.
Yeah. I mean, he used to drink 100 beers on a flight from Charlotte to L.A. and be like, all right, cool. I guess I'll just drive or what?
Yeah. And he would be sober driver, quote-unquote sober driver after a case of beer and a couple handles. It would be all right.
Yeah. No, he was pretty good at drinking.
So I tell you what, we usually save these shout-outs till the end, but we got to give a big shout-out for doing the official, we'll call it the official pre-show for the Pregame Engineer Tailgate Mayor Racing
definitely
podcast.
The pre-show.
The pre-show was brought to you by the Right Front Tire at T Right Front Tire. And, man, I'll tell you what, if I'm the mayor of Tailgate, he is the president of Periscope. No, the Prince of Periscope.
Prince of Periscope.
Prince of Periscope. He's got the Budweiser crown. He's got a scepter of Jack Daniels.
Yeah, we have bequeathed you, Tyre, the Prince of Periscope, because you were whooping that thing's ass.
I'll tell you what. So it's been real fun. If y'all ain't watching, y'all need to go ahead, stop the podcast for a second. Just promise us y'all come back, but stop the podcast. Go set you an alarm or whatever it's called, and subscribe to T Right Front Tire on Periscope. So it'll come up and give you an alarm when he comes up, and y'all watch. It's just, you're going to laugh, you're going to have fun.
Get in your phone and set the notifications thing to his Periscope. Yeah, you won't regret it.
There's a button in there somewhere. It'll be fun. All right, man, let's talk Vegas.
Vegas! Viva Las Vegas!
Attaboy. So, Vegas.
That was a little bit extravagant.
Well, I think the story of the week was, or the weekend, was that wind, man.
Holy weird-ass weather. That's what I wrote down.
Well, so we had a sandstorm.
Windy.
We had a sandstorm.
Did we have locusts? I thought locusts came in there at some point.
It was raining blood. It was Slayer. It was everything you could think of.
Yeah.
Pretty sure the firstborns are next, so we better be careful about that.
Ooh.
Me and you both. So, we had sand, we had wind, we had rain, we had everything else. And they were sitting there saying, well, we don't know if we're going to get this thing kicked off. And I said, well, you better doggone kick this thing off. I want to see what happens. This is pretty cool. a whole new wrench in the gears.
I was a little worried they weren't going to start on time, but they basically did.
Yeah, 15, 20 minutes late, but that was after some rain. So
the rain, so they were predicting rain all week. Everybody's like, "Oh my God, it's going to rain. We may not get the race in." Jeff Gluck was just extravagant on Twitter, and then it just faded away. The weather dried up, but it was windy as hell, which is, kind of good in a lot of ways because that dry wind at 50 mile an hour actually, we didn't need the crazy cool, what are we calling that thing now? I've already lost my mind. We used jet dryers, but we didn't need the Titan. Yeah, we didn't need the gods of mythology to dry the track for us. So that worked out pretty good.
Yeah. What'd you think? What'd you think of that race?
I loved it.
I tell you what,
loved it.
Once again, you and I are attached at the hip on opinion, and I hate you for it. But absolutely, who doesn't love that race? That was great. Another low downforce. And it was probably similar to how Atlanta was, except we have already talked on the last episode about how we were in Atlanta, listening to our guy, watching our guy, and didn't get to see this spectacle going on in front of us.
If you're watching your guy have a bad day,
yeah.
Doesn't get, and he gets laps down early, and you just don't. That's not a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. But if you're watching the broadcast, we both do the same thing. We get the computer up, we listen to the scanner, and we're watching the broadcast, so we're forced to only be able to visualize what we see on the television. But it looked very cool to me. It looked like guys could pick just about 2.5 lines, maybe even 3 lines they could run, depending on how they wanted to manage their tires and at what stage in the tire run it was, and gas. And it wasn't as rough as Atlanta, but it still offered a pretty significant tire wear.
Y'all pause this podcast, run it back 15, 20 seconds, and listen to what Sherwin just said again. That's what I love about racing right there. Is give me multiple lines, let them choose based on how aggressive they want to get with the tire. Let them say, well, the heck with later. I want to run fast. I'm running this line. I'm going to run this low line, chew up my tires. Jeff Gordon kind of thing back in, when he was killing tires and running up front. Or let's save this out a little bit and run these high deals and get later in the run. That's a Casey Kane sort of strategy. So.
Well, NASCAR fans have been posturing for years that one driver can't get in another driver's car and go as fast as they can in that setup. What this new downforce package allows for is the rebirth of that idea that the setup can be completely catered to the driver and the way he wants to drive the car and the way he wants to manage the tires. And if you can't get excited about that, you just don't care enough about how the racing thing works.
Well, and I said it on the official pre-show on T Right Front Tire, the Right Front Tire show. I had said that late pass. So we had Kyle Busch in that last restart just took off. He was gone, right?
He gone.
Keselowski and Joey are battling each other, trying to get that second place spot. And they're just back and forth on each other's quarters, on each other's rears, everything. Finally, it took forever. Keselowski passes Joey, and that was a great battle to watch.
It was like 12 or 15 lap battle.
Yep, great battle to watch. And then, look, I got goosebumps. See them? There they are. And then he takes off, and everybody knew because it was that next lap was he was Busch was
6/10.
6/10
or something like that.
Next lap was 0.3. He gained 0.3 in a lap, and then straight up passed him. And Busch didn't have any. He didn't have any option to
what we saw
try to block or anything. It would have just been wreckers, and he knew it.
Yeah, I tried to cut you off early. I apologize, but what we saw was exactly what we wanted to see, and it's very benign on television. It's very benign to talk about in the box, but what we saw was Busch he couldn't just go up and get in Brad's way. Kyle just couldn't go up and get in Brad's way. No. He had a line he had committed to for the way his car was set up and the way his tires were wearing. He couldn't just go get in front of Brad and slow him down. And that's the huge difference with the downforce package that we have. That's what makes this so different. But it's so subtle. If you don't hear the guys talk about it in the booth, and if you don't read enough intelligent race banter from the media. Mm-hmm. Either they're not capable of it, they don't know how to describe it, or they just don't know, or they have too many other things to cover. You don't see that that's what the difference was. Last year, Kyle could have pulled up in Brad's way and just kept him behind him.
That's what I said on the pre-show, the pre-show, whatever we're calling it. I said, last year, that pass doesn't happen. I don't think that happens at all. Because Kyle would have been gone, tires would have been in a different situation. I mean, who knows, butterfly effect. But in that same situation, that pass just doesn't happen. He won't be able to get up there in time. He won't be able to get those 0.3 in a lap like that.
No, and you were never getting 0.3 a lap with the old Aero package.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you were maybe running a guy down a tenth, but by the time you got to him, it just disappeared because it was all Aero. It was all Aero related.
Yep. And, I mean, I know we're talking about the last 25, 30 laps of the race, but all throughout the race, I mean, people are making passes. They're posturing to get to that position. There's guys who are messing up a little bit because of that and have to take a different strategy or wreck out or whatever. So, straight up, I mean, just good racing. That's the racing we want. NASCAR's done well there. I know we did some pretty heavy criticism last week in NASCAR, so let's give them props where props are due. This is pretty good.
Yeah, I think getting a chance to see this package on television at a very similar track that we watched in person has definitely, like, I got it. There's a check mark in the column of I can't wait to see Fontana because Fontana was actually pretty good even with the Aero stuff. So I can't imagine what it's going to be like in 2 weeks when we go there. Not to belittle Phoenix because Phoenix is a lot of fun. It's just a different kind of race.
Hey, quick shout out to our folks, for our friends over at Over the Wall Race out there in California.
That's right. They'll probably be there.
Yeah.
I know Kathy was at Vegas, I think.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. It sounded like she was.
Good for her. Excellent. So hope to hear some front row commentary from that.
For sure. In the media center, at least. Get the pulse.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So one thing that this is funny because I texted you immediately after it happened. Every time that Brad Keselowski wins, of course he gets the American flag. He puts it in the car and rides around in it. We've talked about it on the podcast before. Playfully, I'm a Carl Edwards fan, and Sherwin playfully roots against him. And opposite on Brad Keselowski. Sherwin's a Brad Keselowski fan. Playfully, I root against Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski won. It was a great race. It was a great finish. I enjoyed every bit of it. I am not even the slightest upset about it. But other than me texting back and forth with Sherwin going, don't make the pass. I hope you don't make, all that sort of stuff. Anyway, he gets that flag in there. The high wind situation, that flag drops on the ground. And I texted Sherwin. I said, uh-oh, here come the dum-dums.
Fixing to catch a wet bucket of doo-doo from the people that don't like him. And golly, I mean, he's the only guy that's willing to fly the flag when he wins. Do we really have to get upset with him when we have a mishap? And all weather-related?
All the veteran stuff that he does, all the charity stuff that he does for that. And the only reason I wanted to bring this up was to say, you know what? Let's give him a pass. Maybe just this once. Maybe, even if you're on the fence on this, give him a pass just once. He is volunteering and donating all kinds of money and hours and everything toward all sort of veterans affairs, veterans sort of stuff. He's a great guy with this. So let's give him that pass. You know what I really liked? He stopped the car, turned it off, and got out and ran off and got the flag. He knew what he had to do.
He did it as fast as he could. Mm-hmm. So how about we be a little bit less concerned about the fact that the flag hit the ground and more concerned that Brad's willing to be as pro-American as anybody is willing to be in a very pro-American sport. So cool. Be patriotic. That's awesome. He wants to fly the flag. They tried everything they could to make sure that flag was secure. Did not prepare for 50-mile-an-hour winds because who could?
Right.
Yeah, so why don't we just chill out on that? And people that are military veterans are going to have a really gung-ho attitude about this. How about if you had a problem with the flag hitting the ground, go and read up about what Brad does for veterans and Americans and how patriotic he is and understand why he should get the pass that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
This it should get a pat, okay? Let's move on and let's continue to be Americans who are tolerant.
Right. So let's move on. I got a question for you. Jeff Gordon in the booth. Was that a good call by Fox, or was it a great call by Fox?
Was it the best call they ever made? Can I offer that up as an answer?
I said this in our pre-show right here, and I'm going to take my hat off just to kind of like rub my temples a little bit and say I have to apologize to everybody. I've always been a fan of DW in the booth.
Boogity, boogity, boogity.
Boogity, 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 all that stuff. He was the first, and maybe it's because when I first became a fan of NASCAR, he was the one that I'm listening to because Fox takes the front half of the season or whatever, and I was like, boogity, 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 I'm all about that. This guy's great, and then you learn more about him. Again, as soon as I'm starting to become a fan, learning about who this guy is that's saying all this stuff, real cool. I really like it, and so I've got a lot of history in liking DW, but a changing of the guard, if you will. There were a dozen times that me and you texted back and forth during this race, and I said, Jeff is just schooling these guys. Just everything they're saying, from water bottles on the ground, and they're saying, well, a fan could have thrown that, and Jeff's like, no, there's a big old straw sticking out of it.
Hanging out of it.
Yeah. To just how the cars are reacting. Jeff is also bringing, I got to remember the exact time that he did it, but he was talking about how he's like, well, I've been watching him, and he's been running this line right here, which means he's trying to conserve blah, 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 and it was a perspective that you're not going to get from anybody else. And if you're paying attention and you're watching, you're listening to what Jeff Gordon's got to say, it just adds so much to the broadcast. It was really cool to hear that. Now at Daytona, it was a little different when we were listening to that. I think it was more the Daytona atmosphere, and there's so little else, little going on the track.
There's nothing technical going on the track.
Right,
Let's be honest.
Mash the gas, put it to the floor, and hope you don't wreck. But and of course Atlanta, we were there, so we didn't hear him in the booth. But man, this was really cool. I was a big fan.
Well, I mean, let's be honest with you. Jeff Foxworthy said it best. The core southeastern stock car racing fan base, they don't like Jeff because he enunciates. He knows how to speak intelligently about whatever subject he chooses to speak, and he says it very well, which is why we like him, even though he doesn't talk like us.
Right. Well, in that same joke from Jeff Foxworthy, he talks about interviewing one of the country drivers afterwards, and he says, well, old Ricky, he puked the motor, Bill booger jacked a wedge in there.
Some wedge got booger jacked in.
And since then, on my fantasy teams for NASCAR, for the past 10 years, my fantasy team's been named Booger Jacks. So there's a good...
for a long... since
maybe
we started getting involved with it.
Yep, Booger Jack. That's all Rusty's team name on the fantasy. We introduced a new segment last week, and I got to clear my throat for it. You ready for it? Cheaters! I'll tell you about some cheaters, man. We had a couple.
You want to hear that get hollered? Come hang out with us at a Georgia Tech football game.
I tell you what, Furniture Row.
Man, them guys.
Hey, they played.
God love them, but they are some cheating fools over there.
They played it perfect, I thought.
Oh, they did exactly what you would. So they threw out their version of the caution with the appeal. So they got.
So you remember, this was the whole roof flap deal, right?
Yeah, 2 weeks in a row with the roof flap, which is some kind of
Martin Truex Jr. Just to remind everybody, Martin Truex Jr. had roof flap issues 2 weeks in a row. Crew chief got suspended, blah blah blah, all that mess. And so for Vegas, where they had testing and a race and a tough race, I would say, I don't want to say tougher than Phoenix, but it was. I don't know.
Oh, from an aero perspective,
right.
Way tougher than setting up for Phoenix.
Right. So what do? They put on their bulletproof jackets and they say, "Hey, we're going to appeal this. We're blah 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 blah." And so in the appeals process, the whole rules or whatever is that okay? Well, the crew chief gets to stay on for that race, and then what happens as soon as the race is over?
Sorry,
Sherwin lost his train of thought.
I got distracted by something I saw on the Periscope. I apologize. That was bad.
It's all good. Soon as the race is over, they say, "Oh, you know what? We're bailing on the whole appeal thing."
They're going to bail out on the appeal because, well, I mean, losing Cole Pearn for Phoenix is not nearly as big a deal as losing him for Fontana or for Vegas, and the fact that a couple of appeals in the last couple of years have actually added penalties to, like, they've increased their penalty upon the appeal. It's like that's one of the risks you have. It's like it's not just a what do they call it, carte blanche. Like there's not a hard line that you can't be penalized more. You go into an appeal and they go, oh wait, we found this other thing too in the discussion. Oh yeah, you're 2 races.
Yeah,
and $100,000.
Yeah. So that's kind of funny. I think that's our only cheater this week. But let's talk about
well, except for the drivers on pit road.
Well, you're right. We had 21 penalties this week. 21.
Yeah, and
I don't know if that's high or low comparatively, but 21 penalties
sounds like
a lot of penalties.
Well, they've talked about Vegas. It's really hard to get on pit road for years because of the transition.
I see speeders on the Periscope. Yeah. I like it.
Speeders. Well, off mic. The transition at these weird tri-oval 1.5s, typically where the banking meets the apron, is a little bit challenging to manage, especially considering where you start to exit, where the fast groove is, and where you want to be like waving out the window, going, "Hey, I'm coming to pit road," and like it's you have to rely on that guy behind you to change his groove. So there's a lot of that, a lot of things going on in old Duder's head.
In the old Duder's head. So 21 penalties seems like a bunch. We'll see where that goes next week, or what this all has to do with aero or whatever, or the wind, or who knows what. I think was it Kurt Busch who was talking about the red lights? He's like, I only had one red light, and it was, well, you were going 50.1. The speed limit's 45, and they give you a 5-mile-an-hour buffer. So you know what, Bub?
I don't understand why they ever get upset. It's like you were plus 5 point something.
Right. So, the buffer means something to me, and I know you got to push that edge. You got to push it as close to 50 as you can, but that's part of the buffer. You're already 8 to 10% over.
Like, for sure, be mad at yourself, but do not be mad at NASCAR.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're already 5 miles an hour north of where they said you ought to go.
Yeah.
Like, at that point, you just have to be mad at your team and the way they set up the digital logistics within the car.
Yeah. Well, let's back it up to Xfinity. We had pretty much one of the most dominating races by Kyle Busch that has ever happened.
Led 99.5% of the laps.
And the one that he didn't was because he pitted at one point and somebody else didn't, and so
right, it was a green flag,
and so they were leading for a lap. We've actually seen that in the last couple of years. I remember, matter of fact, he led every lap of one of the races. I can't remember which one. A couple of years ago,
it was a short tracker.
And knowing us, it's probably been like 8 years, just because we're getting old, and I think it's been.
Well, I wrote a little note in this that there was. I mean, with all the bitching that you see on Twitter about Cup drivers and Xfinity and trucks, that like we've hit this topic about 15 times already in 39 episodes. There's not a lot of reason to dwell. But there was some conversation on Twitter about it, and like obviously, anybody that's following the podcast handle is going to see, activity about this, either back and forth between Drunk Brian France at Drunk Brian F, or I think there was some chatter today with Joey Meyer, who is a spotter for Brad K, who is more of a on the positive side of the fence for Cup drivers and lower series. But, I mean, we could talk about this all day, or we can just say this is the model that appears to be working for the businesses that are involved in the sport. So where are you at? I'd like to hear what you want to say on that.
Man, as always, I mean, with politics, with everything else in my life, I feel like I just see. I'm old enough now where I see both sides, and I just can't. I can't make a whole. I can't make my own decisions for it for some stupid reason. I can see. Here's the thing: as a fan of the Xfinity Series, I don't want to see Cup drivers just running away with it, or Cup drivers winning. I want to see these guys. In my perfect world, here's the thing: in my perfect world, there's no Cup drivers, and 3 million people watch a race and love it and see the Xfinity drivers doing their thing. That's my perfect world. That's what I want to see. Is exactly that. The problem is the other side of that coin that I understand. You're not going to get 3 million people if you can't have these Cup drivers in there. You're not going to get the money or the opportunities for these other people if you don't have the Cup drivers in there every once in a while. So it's hard for me. In my ideal world, there's no Cup drivers in the Xfinity Series, and these guys are just running for championship, and there's no exhibition of a Cup driver in the series. But that means that more people got to watch it, and more money's got to be generated, and more opportunities that got to be there. I get that. So I don't know how we get to my ideal.
So I think you and I agree on what's ideal. I think I've been able to ground myself in what's reality. Not to saying you're not. I'm just saying when I formulate an opinion about it, I'm grounded in what today's reality is. And let's don't forget, okay, so you periscopers, you're looking at this blue Wrangler hat, one tough customer. Dale Earnhardt won 21 Busch races in his career. Most of those races he entered after he was already a Cup star. Mark Martin won 49
Mark Martin's got
Busch races, and I think he might have crossed over into Xfinity, maybe not, or next nationwide.
Mm-hmm.
But between those two guys, they won 70 races. Okay, so where we're at now with Kyle is he's won 78. All right, we're upset about that. But the thing is, without Kyle, Gibbs doesn't have 4 cars in the Xfinity Series. We don't have, the same people are sitting there. I mean, pitchfork, they poured gasoline on a pitchfork. It's sharp and flaming. They're running around with it.
Combo.
And they're saying that these guys are taking rides away from developing drivers. And then you look right 10 feet over to his right, and you see teammates of his. Mm-hmm. Eric Jones, who started in a Kyle Busch Motorsports truck.
Yep.
And Daniel Suarez, who started in a Kyle Busch Motorsports truck. What the cuss word are you even talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Kyle is doing more to develop young drivers than a lot of people.
Yeah.
Same with Brad. Brad's got these guys coming up in his truck series. He races the truck every now and again and puts Joey in one of them to make sure they keep it competitive.
Yep.
So that they know that the information they're giving to and getting from their young guys is relevant.
And remember, we've heard interviews with Brad Keselowski. We've heard interviews with
Kyle too. They both lose money.
Kyle, yep, and that's where I was going with this. In trucks, trucks is a money losing ordeal. No team is making money in trucks unless you're. I think there was unless you win the championship, you're not going to make any money. And
you also have to win multiple races along that path,
right?
Which is why the chase doesn't make sense.
Right.
It's actually going to hurt people from making. It's going to hurt the teams that perform the best from making money because some random crap might happen in the last 5 or 6 races.
Mm-hmm.
And we can talk about that as we get later in the year. Sorry for the ADD moment there, but the whole idea that the elite Cup drivers dropping down series. What it does is it bolsters sponsorship. It allows for more fast cars, and it allows kids, just young brat racers looking to figure out how to drive a car. It allows them to get in a car for 5 or 6 races a year, maybe just 3, depending, and drive a car that's fast so they can understand how they need to adjust to being a full-time NASCAR touring series driver, because you do not get that at Saturday Night Short Track super late models. You're probably not going to get it at K&N. as much as you'd like them to.
Yeah. So, and you said at the very beginning, I'll circle all the way back around, and you said at the very beginning, what we have right now is pretty darn good. And somebody said it on the Periscope here, and I forget who it was, sorry who it was, but they said they're not taking points away from anybody. And so that's kind of compelling for me right now, too. So the way we have it right now, we only have a few where this, or we only have certain cases where this, or certain races where this is the case. Although it did happen in the last 2 races where Kyle Busch didn't run away with it at Atlanta. He ran away with it in Vegas.
For sure.
But they're not affecting the points or anything. So I don't know. I think where we're at right now, my opinion side of it on being realistic, like you said before, was, you're trying to be realistic with it. I want my ideal world, but if I have to take my ideals and apply them towards something more realistic, what we have right now, I don't know what to change today to make that any better, other than salt the earth kind of deal and start over, no Cup drivers, period, and see what happens. And I don't think that'd be a good thing.
Yeah, and I want to take a chance real quick to head over to the Periscope comments, because what Right Front Tire just said is a huge point that supports what we've been talking about the last 5 minutes, in that Eric Jones was not discovered until he passed Kyle Busch at the Snowball Derby.
Mm-hmm.
And Kyle Busch was racing better equipment, because Kyle Busch super late model equipment is the best equipment.
Is the best.
Okay,
there's no doubt, because it only costs what, $20,000.
Yeah, and I don't know what it costs,
probably
but yeah, who
100,
knows? But Eric Jones passed him at the Snowball Derby, and Kyle Busch approached him after the race and said, "I want to look at what does it look like to put you on some of my stuff."
Right.
And then he went to the trucks, and now he's in a Joe Gibbs Xfinity car, and he's kicking ass. So
next big thing,
is that
man.
really a bad thing? Like, are we really, what are we trying to measure when it comes to this whole relationship between top tier drivers and lower series?
Yeah, if you look at that big picture, like you're saying, I mean, look at Eric Jones, look at Chris Buescher, look at these other guys. I mean, everybody. Look at Chase Elliott. He came up through all the.
I watched him race in Atlanta Motor Speedway in a Legends car when he was 10.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we're hollering and fussing, but it's because we're passionate about what we're talking about.
Exactly. You had a few Twitter debates this week, and I let's shout out to these exact people, because they were very cordial in disagreeing, which I think is lacking in today's Twitter debates a lot, and maybe because of 140 characters and all that, it's hard to say, oh, well, here's where I'm kind of being sarcastic, here's where I'm kind of being real and all that. You had some, or the PETM podcast handle, which I should say is we at this point. It is we. We had some good conversations with folks. One of them at D_PYBURN, D Pyburn. I think about the whole Trump thing. We talked about it last week on the podcast, and D Pyburn's not here to represent his or her side of the story, so I don't want to represent one side or the other at this point. But
no, we don't do that on the podcast. That's not one of the things that we do.
Right. Well, we're not going to use ours to be a soapbox against somebody. But point is, D Pyburn had a slightly differing opinion. I think it is a worthwhile opinion to have about if it seemed like the Trump endorsement is only a big thing because people are making it a big thing, and that's a good opinion that needs exploration, and we explored that a little bit. Had some fun going back and forth, I think. So thank you, D Pyburn, for that offering there. You mentioned it before. You talked to Drunk Brian France a bit about the Cup drivers in Xfinity, which we just talked about.
Yeah, well, I think a couple of different times the podcast handle has had a very lengthy conversation with Drunk Brian France about whether Cup drivers ought to be able to drive in these lower series, and what the impact is on the series and on the fandom, and on the fact that how does that help younger guys develop. And I think we have we and I say, usually when I chase these arguments is because you and I have broached them on the front end.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so if Pregame Engineer is managing the podcast account,
we're getting a freaking sea of hearts
yeah,
right now.
I really appreciate all the hearts on Periscope.
That's funny.
But if you and I have had the conversation on the front end and we have agreed on it, then I'll chase the white rabbit to the point where I'm not going to be mean. I'm just going to stick to what we know and what we understand. And what we understand about the business of the lower series is that it appears that the Cup guys coming down is a necessary part of gaining the appropriate sponsorship to win races and win championships.
Yeah.
And so Brian has a very different opinion on that, which is cool because the only way to really learn about the integrity of your own opinion is to have someone question it.
That's a great point. And I think what I started with, which was, here's my ideal, I think that's everybody's ideal. I think that's exactly the same. It's a matter of what gets us to that ideal. Do we, right now, go ahead you just mashed the
I'm
heart
doing
button.
I gave us some hearts. That's the first time I've ever done that.
That's fine. I'll mash the button. Watch this. But it's a matter of we all have the same ideal, and I think we all agree. We don't in our perfect world. We don't want to see that. At what point do we cut it off? Do we say today that no more Cup drivers in Xfinity? You know, I'm going back to that point, but I think all I'm saying is I think people have differing opinions on what level that we approach that subject. At what level do we say we cut it off right now, never, or we cut off at this point or that point or that point? We've already expressed our opinion on that. Again, Drunk Brian F is not here to state his opinion, so I don't want to argue against him on here. But I think all I'm trying to say is I think we all actually do have a very similar ideal in this.
Well, I think what we need to understand is when we go into a discussion or a debate or an argument or however you want to describe the interaction is, are we talking about like what you want ideally, what you think realistic is, or what you think the future is going to be? And you have to figure out which one of those three sort of arenas you want to operate in. I think if you're operating in ideal, then I'm perfectly aligned with Brian France. I would love for all
Drunk Brian France. Let's
drunk
Brian.
Drunk Brian France. Yeah, let's not get confused with. Never mind. We did that last episode.
We'll call him Drunk Brian France. We'll call him Trump Brian France.
Yeah, Drunk Brian France. I think we're aligned wholly on the idea that we would love to see as many new, young, upcoming drivers as possible in these series that are underneath and supporting Cup. But you're not grounded in reality if you think that Cup drivers aren't required to bolster the series from a sponsorship perspective, a ratings perspective, and a butts in the seats perspective.
Let's talk. Let's move on. Let's talk about next week.
Yeah,
we go to Phoenix.
What a cool track.
It's one of
Rattlesnake Hill.
See there's the goosebumps again.
We already mapped this out. I think I already predetermined for us that whenever we go, we're going to watch trucks from Rattlesnake Hill. We're going to watch Xfinity from over there in that weird dogleg thing, like right outside of turn 2, and then we're going to watch the Cup race from high up in turn 1.
Yep,
because that feels like the best sort of way to see what cars are doing. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and announce it. We are less than 2 years away from making that realization.
Ooh.
Yeah. Within 2 years, we will do that.
I'm committing. I'm in.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's no doubt. Now we have to. There's no doubt. Hey, we'll meet the Over the Wall race team.
We'll get to meet some of the West Coast folks that
Cliff
go to the
Kathy.
racetrack. Maybe Cliff, maybe Kathy. Who knows? But we're definitely going. We're going.
So it's time to make picks. Wait. See, this is what happens when the producer is away.
Did we get all the way to picks already?
We did get all the way to picks. I'm
impressed.
Yeah, we're going crazy here. Hold on. Here it is.
Well, I got to get to this beer.
Start your action!
Oh, yeah. Give it up. There it is. So, picks. Picks for this weekend. We've still got a few topics after this, but picks for this weekend. This was the hardest for me to pick, but I don't think I have to pick yet because Vegas. Who in the world did we pick?
I picked Kurt, and he finished 9th.
I picked. Who did I pick?
I'm trying to remember.
I can't even remember. That's lame. I'd have to roll back the old podcast to remember who in the world did I pick. Go ahead. You go.
You picked Kyle.
I picked Kyle. Kyle got 3rd.
He finished 3rd.
Okay. So I do get to go first, which is actually worse because I kind of wanted to go second because it was like, well, I can either pick Harvick or somebody else. Because, I mean, Harvick's had the last 2 wins. He's 5 of 7 since.
Yo mama, Batman.
He's 5 of 7 after the repave. Jimmy's on a roll. I'll tell you this much. So here's the thing. I wish Jeff Gordon was still racing because I would pick Jeff Gordon right now. Is Jeff not the perfect pick today?
Shut your mouth.
Is he not the perfect pick?
You shut your mouth. That's good.
That's the pick. That's who I want. I'm picking Jeff Gordon.
You're picking Jeff Gordon?
I'm going to pick so it's I don't want to pick Harvick because that's to quote the right front tire. That's picking under caution. I'm going for Jimmy. Jimmy's on the roll. Your
mom.
He's won a race and he's 3rd in a race in the last couple. So that might be still picking under caution, but I don't think he doesn't have that same history at this racetrack that somebody like Harvick, especially the recent history. So I'm going to pick Jimmy. I'm going with Jimmy Johnson.
You're going with Jimmy Johnson.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm not going to add too much to the shock value here. I think I'm just going to pick something that makes sense to me, and he's been running fast but under the radar. I'm going to pick Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Ooh, we're both going Hendrick. Hendrick's strong here.
They've been very strong.
Mm-hmm. So it's a good pick. And the pick that I wanted was Jeff Gordon. So quote unquote Hendrick still. So absolutely who I'd want to pick.
Hey, tailgate. Who's your dark horse?
Ooh, dark horse pick. Ooh. Give me 1 second. I'm thinking. Austin Dillon. I'm picking Austin Dillon as my dark horse. Yep.
That's a good pick.
I like that pick.
For those that are commenting on Periscope about the dark horse means like maybe they want to race, but like it was on a weird thing like a road course. Basically, a dark horse means somebody that's only won in some weird sort of situation. So, like if I pick, I don't know, a rookie like Ryan Blaney, that counts as a dark horse pick because he's not a winner yet. So I'm picking Ryan Blaney.
Well, the reason I
sat dark horse.
The reason I sat here and went, who's my dark horse, is that I was flipping a coin in my head between those two. So we're on the same page.
Yep.
I like both of them. I'm not gonna get mad at either one of those picks. But I will get mad at Ryan Blaney now because you picked him and I didn't. So
I'm going to hate your guy too. So.
There you go. What you drinking? You opening up something new?
I did. I opened up an IPA Hop Hunter from Sierra Nevada, who came from the West Coast, Chico, California, but joined us over here in the deep, dirty South at Mills River, North Carolina. So we get real fresh Sierra Nevada brew.
That's good stuff.
Out of Lower North
Asheville-ish?
Yeah, Asheville-ish. Yeah.
Asheville-ish. Yep, right outside. So, yeah, good pull there. Matter of fact, I've just finished up, too, because I bought that whole tackle box deal that we've talked about before, and Sherwin's been raiding my fridge. I got the Torpedo IPA. I got the 5-hop experimental.
That one tastes like pine needles, and it's delicious.
Oh, yeah, it's fun stuff. One thing, so let's just get way off topic here. I think we're close to done talking about NASCAR, so we might as well just... fart around for a little while.
For sure.
Our esteemed producer, who's not with us in this episode, the Frizz 11, my wife, she has made fun of me over the last 3 weeks because 2 weeks, whatever it is, because every time she comes downstairs, I have the same program on DVR. and that is the Jason Aldean and Bob Seger Crossroads show. And
Is that MTV?
That's it used to be called Palladia, but it's now called MTV Live. Is the name of the network.
I remember when it was Palladia.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so it's called MTV Live now. Y'all look that up. If you're listening to this podcast, I know you're a fan of Bob Seger, and I know you're probably a fan of Jason Aldean too. Bob Seger's 70 years old, and that's the one, man. That's the one. That
East Omaha.
So let me tell you, this happened last night. I'm talking about last night. This is the 4th time I've watched this thing. 5th time, maybe. I don't know. 6th time? I'm the Frizz 11, our steam producer, is in the shower. I'm downstairs watching it. That last time that he screams, just turn the page, and that saxophone comes in. The final saxophone comes in. I'm telling you, this is the 4th, 5th time, 6th, 7th time, whatever it is. 4th, 5th time that I've seen this, and I jumped up off the couch and was cheering by myself in my own living room, cheering for this. Y'all, you got to see it. I went and looked it up later just because I'm a nerd like that. That's what nerds do. We just start trying to validate our own opinions. But I went online and looked, and that won some award for that song. That performance of that song won some award that year, which I think was 2014 or maybe 2015, maybe last year.
Oh, it was probably collaboration award.
It might have been a collaboration or live performance award. Yeah,
the CMAs or the AMA.
One of the 10,000. Shout out to Ryan McGee.
Ryan McGee, yeah,
who makes fun of the
American
10,000
Country Music Award Association of Country Music of America. It does get a little out of hand. There's like 6 of them.
Yeah. So real cool. Y'all got to check that out. That Crossroads of Jason Aldean and Bob Seger. That was real neat. And Bob Seger, like I said, 70 years old, but he's got it, man. He's it's where it's at, like a rock,
Well, and he's relevant as hell too, based on all that Eagles stuff about Glenn Fry. Glenn Fry passed away, but like Glenn Fry was a 17, 18-year-old kid, like smoking pot and hanging out with Bob Seger in the basement, jamming on a guitar, and that's what became the Eagles.
Exactly. I think that brings us to that guy.
All right, so we haven't had this happen yet because
bring up the house lights, bring down the music just a little bit.
We haven't
just for a second.
We haven't been doing this for a year yet, so we have a new thing, and I'm sure we'd love. There's probably a couple of different songs that we'd love to play in the background, but we haven't sorted out what is okay to do.
It's actually
with
legal.
Somebody's legally what somebody's music rights are, but there's Pink Floyd is one of them. There's a couple other
Devil
ones
Makes
too.
Three. There's there's a few.
Yeah,
anyway.
But so one of our best friends who is no longer with us just had a birthday yesterday.
32nd?
33rd.
33rd. He's getting old.
Yeah, he's getting old. Wade Garrett's getting old. Christopher
he's still the best.
Danger Canis, used to be one of our running buddies. Potentially might have been on this podcast.
We've said it before. He'd have been the third on this podcast.
Yeah, he taught us a lot of things, and so we create. I got a guy. Helped us out with a deal that we dedicated to him. So we're going to have a little sip of it. This is an aged shine. It looks nice and golden brown like you'd expect a whiskey to look because it was aged very much like the whiskeys and bourbons that you can buy on the shelf today. So to Christopher Danger Canis, I will have a sip.
Christopher Danger Canis, attaboy. We
went to Darlington with us in 2011.
Boy, that was a fun as hell Darlington. We told the Darlington story in our this last year. We might have to just run that, just play that again.
Well, we'll just clip it and stick it in.
Exactly. Here goes my drink, boys. Cheers to you, Nuts.
Yeah, and we called him Nuts because his last name was Cantus. So, his nickname in college in the fraternity instantly became Cat Nuts just because it made sense. So we shortened it to Nuts, and I might have to have another sip here.
Oh, that's all right. Ain't nothing wrong with that. That was delicious.
Oh yeah.
So sorry to get all serious on y'all, but man, I mean, I'm telling you that when you know a guy who's as, I mean, he's so much cooler and funnier and cooler than we are, you know? I mean,
he was so much more talented too.
Right.
He could play the guitar. He was brilliant. When you meet those people that just have all of the things, and then you have to watch them go away. It's a really tough deal. So we just try to make sure we don't go to the sad place and we go to the happy place, and we celebrate the fact that we got to hang out with him for a better part of a decade. And he was a really cool dude. And he went to us to NASCAR weekends. He
didn't give a crap
about racing. He would sometimes go to the Xfinity race or the truck race with us, but he didn't give a damn about Sunday. He was more of an ambi-turner kind of guy. He actually raced a little bit. He was on the GT Indy team. The what is it? Society of Motorsports Engineering, SME, open wheel thing. So we really enjoyed having him around, so we always have to enjoy him not being around. So that's cool too.
So appreciate the hearts on Periscope. We're always going to celebrate. We're never going to be down and about ourselves at this point anymore. We had some rough times there, but we're going to do nothing but celebrate at this point on old Chris Canis. So that brings us to our last segment here. Oh, that's our shout-out.
Shouting out.
It's about time. We hadn't done it in a dozen episodes or so, and I know she's on the Periscope right now. So my sister, our number one fan, our first fan, and the one who brings us them jelly beans good as hell.
Them jelly beans good as hell, y'all.
If you didn't hit our Easter eggs before, that's my sister Steph. Her Periscope, or her what do you call that? Twitter handle.
Steph Socks Woo.
Steph Socks Woo. That's straight up our alley. STEPHSOXWOO. Thank you, Steph, for hanging out with us. We already talked about T Right Front Tire doing the official pre-game show.
That was really cool. Thank you, Evan.
The Prince of Periscope.
Tire, the Prince of Periscope. You've done a great job with that. And I say you done it because I'm sure y'all will respect that colloquialism better. We really appreciate y'all following along. We really appreciate all that front-end effort on the Periscope before we even got started. And we want to shout out, I think we already mentioned it, but at D_PYBURN, Danny Pyburn, we appreciate you. We appreciate at Drunk Brian F. TL, love to have you. Thank you so much for what you do for us in terms of exposure.
Let's shout out to Batman.
I can't tell how many A's it was. That's what I was trying to figure out.
It's A's and N's.
It's at, and it's all lowercase. It's BATM. I think it's 3 A's. MAAA, and then a couple of N's or something like that.
I'm trying to look on there on the Periscope there. It's all good. Let's start bringing this thing down. Man, we ran out of jelly beans. So we're going to have to do
slap out of jelly beans.
We're going to have to do the beer chocolate challenge here.
So we're going to do the beer chocolate closeout challenge.
Yeah, beer chocolate. I mean, just stuff them out. Get 2 of them in there.
Hold on.
There you go. Well, y'all know us. We're a PETM podcast.
So what do y'all want to hear about next week, you think?
Probably Phoenix.
This is not enough chocolate. I need more.
Eat some more chocolate. It's beer chocolate. It's good as hell.
Yeah. So, thanks y'all for watching on the Periscope. I think we had our largest crowd yet, and I think we can attribute it all to Right Front Tire. Cool guy. Batman.
We're
Chris Canis. Love you, brother.
Love you, brother.
Love you.
Absolutely. PETMpodcast.com. Y'all visit us.
PETM at PETMpodcast.com. Email.
Yep. Email us. Send us your hate mail. I'm looking forward to that. I need more chocolate.
Yeah, come hate us. PETM Racing Podcast at Facebook. And you want to follow us at Tailgate Mayor on Twitter, and at Pregame Engineer on Twitter, and at PETM all caps Podcast on the Twitter.
And we'll talk to you all next week.
Man, I'm not too good at that closeout, but that's all right. I'll be better at this part of it.